Um, what we're going to do is we're going to view the film and then have about an hour for people to comment. What we would like during the comment is if you would think about while you're watching the film, what strikes you particularly about the speech, and in what ways do you think it is relevant or could be used today? So, you might just keep that in mind as you're watching it. And I think we should go ahead and start. Yeva, do you want to put it up? And I'll mute myself, and everyone remain muted so that
President Anderson, members of the faculty, Board of Trustees, distinguished guests, my old colleague, Senator Bob Byrd, who has earned his degree through many years of attending Knight Law School, while I am earning mine in the next 30 minutes, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pride that I participate in this ceremony of the American University, sponsored by the Methodist Church, founded by Bishop John Fletcher Hurst, and first opened by President Woodrow Wilson in 1914. This is a young and growing university, but it has already fulfilled Bishop Hurst's enlightened hope for the study of history and public affairs in a city devoted to the making of history and to the conduct of the public's business. By sponsoring this institution of higher learning for all who wish to learn, whatever their color or their creed, the Methodists of this area and the nation deserve the nation's thanks. And I commend all those who are today graduating. Professor Woodrow Wilson once said that every man sent out from the university should be a man of his nation, as well as a man of his time. And I'm confident that the men and women who carry the honor of graduating from this institution will continue to give from their lives, from their talents, a high measure of public service and public support. There are few earthly things more beautiful than a university, wrote John Masefield in his tribute to English universities, and his words are equally true today. He did not refer to towers or to campuses. He admired the splendid beauty of a university because it was, he said, a place where those who hate ignorance may strive to know, where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see. I have therefore chosen this time and place to discuss a topic on which ignorance too often abounds, and the truth too rarely perceived. And that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time. I speak of peace because of the new face of war. Total war makes no sense in an age where great powers can maintain large and relatively invulnerable nuclear forces and refuse to surrender without resort to those forces. It makes no sense in an age where a single nuclear weapon contains almost 10 times the explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age when the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet unborn. Today, the expenditure of billions of dollars every year on weapons acquired for the purpose of making sure we never need them is essential to the keeping of peace. But surely the acquisition of such idle stockpiles, which can only destroy and never create, is not the only, much less the most efficient, means of assuring peace. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. Some say that it is useless to speak of peace or world law or world disarmament, and that it will be useless until the leaders of the Soviet Union adopt a more enlightened attitude. I hope they do. I believe we can help them do it. But I also believe that we must re-examine our own attitudes as individuals and as a nation, for our attitude is as essential as theirs. And every graduate of this school, every thoughtful citizen who despairs of war and wishes to bring peace should begin by looking inward, by examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War, and towards freedom and peace here at home. First, examine our attitude towards peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control. We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made. Therefore, they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. I am not referring to the absolute, infinite concept of universal peace and goodwill, of which some fantasies and fanatics dream. I do not deny the value of hopes and dreams, but we merely invite discouragement and incredulity by making that our only and immediate goal. Let us focus instead on a more practical, more attainable peace, based not on a sudden revolution in human nature, but on a gradual evolution in human institutions, on a series of concrete actions and effective agreements which are in the interests of all concerned. There is no single simple key to this peace, no grand or magic formula to be adopted by one or two powers. Genuine peace must be the product of many nations, the sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenge of each new generation. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. With such a peace, there will still be quarrels and conflicting interests, as there are within families and nations. World peace, like community peace, does not require that each man love his neighbor. It requires only that they live together in mutual tolerance, submitting their disputes to a just and peaceful settlement. And history teaches us that enmities between nations, as between individuals, do not last forever. However fixed our likes and dislikes may seem, the tide of time and events will often bring surprising changes in the relations between nations and neighbors. So let us persevere. Peace need not be impractical. and war need not be inevitable. By defining our goal more clearly, by making it seem more manageable and less remote, we can help all people to see it, to draw hope from it, and to move irresistibly towards it. And second, let us re-examine our attitude towards the Soviet Union. It is discouraging to think that their leaders may actually believe what their propagandists write. It is discouraging to read a recent authoritative Soviet text on military strategy and find on page after page wholly baseless and incredible claims, such as the allegation that American imperialist circles are preparing to unleash different types of war, that there is a very real threat of a preventative war being unleashed by American imperialists against the Soviet Union, and that the political aims, and I quote, of the American imperialists are to enslave economically and politically the European and other capitalist countries and to achieve world domination by means of aggressive war, unquote. Truly, as it was written long ago, the wicked flee when no man pursueth. Yet it is sad to read these Soviet statements, to realize the extent of the gulf between us. But it is also a warning to the American people not to fall into the same trap as the Soviets, not to see only a distorted and desperate view of the other side, not to see conflict as inevitable, accommodation as impossible, and communication as nothing more than an exchange of threats. No government or social system is so evil that its people must be considered as lacking in virtue. As Americans, we find communism profoundly repugnant as a negation of personal freedom and dignity. But we can still hail the Russian people for their many achievements in science and space, in economic and industrial growth, in culture, in acts of courage. Among the many traits the peoples of our two countries have in common, none is stronger than our mutual abhorrence of war. Almost unique among the major world powers, we have never been at war with each other. And no nation in the history of battle ever suffered more than the Soviet Union in the Second World War. At least 20 million lost their lives. Countless millions of homes and families were burned or sacked. A third of the nation's territory, including 2/3 of its industrial base, was turned into a wasteland, a loss equivalent to the destruction of this country east of Chicago. Today, should total war ever break out again, no matter how, our two countries will be the primary target. It is an ironic but accurate fact that the two strongest powers are the two in the most danger of devastation. All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed in the first 24 hours. And even in the Cold War, which brings burdens and dangers to so many countries, including this nation's closest allies, our two countries bear the heaviest burdens. For we are both devoting massive sums of money to weapons that could be better devoted to combat ignorance, poverty, and disease. We are both caught up in a vicious and dangerous cycle, with suspicion on one side breeding suspicion on the other, and new weapons begetting counterweapons. In short, both the United States and its allies, and the Soviet Union and its allies, have a mutually deep interest in a just and genuine peace and in holding the arms race. Agreements to this end are in the interests of the Soviet Union as well as ours. And even the most hostile nations can be relied upon to accept and keep those treaty obligations, and only those treaty obligations, which are in their own interest. So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal. Third, let us re-examine our attitude towards the Cold War, remembering we're not engaged in a debate, seeking to pile up debating points. We are not here distributing blame or pointing the finger of judgment. We must deal with the world as it is, and not as it might have been, had the history of the last 18 years been different. We must therefore persevere in the search for peace, in the hope that constructive changes within the communist bloc might bring within reach solutions which now seem beyond us. We must conduct our affairs in such a way that it becomes in the communist interest to agree on a genuine peace, and above all, while defending our own vital interests. Nuclear powers must avert those confrontations which bring an adversary to a choice of either a humiliating retreat or a nuclear war. To adopt that kind of course in the nuclear age would be evidence only of the bankruptcy of our policy or of a collective death wish for the world. To secure these ends, America's weapons are non-provocative, carefully controlled, designed to deter, and capable of selective use. Our military forces are committed to peace and disciplined in self-restraint. Our diplomats are instructed to avoid unnecessary irritants and purely rhetorical hostility, for we can seek a relaxation of tensions without relaxing our guard. And for our part, we do not need to use threats to prove we are resolute. We do not need to jam foreign broadcasts out of fear our faith will be eroded. We are unwilling to impose our system on any unwilling people, but we are willing and able to engage in peaceful competition with any people on earth. Meanwhile, we seek to strengthen the United Nations to help solve its financial problems, to make it a more effective instrument for peace, to develop it into a genuine world security system, a system capable of resolving disputes on the basis of law, of ensuring the security of the large and the small, and of creating conditions under which arms can finally be abolished. At the same time, we seek to keep peace inside the non-communist world, where many nations, all of them our friends, are divided over issues which weaken Western unity, which invite communist intervention, or which threaten to erupt into war. Our efforts in West New Guinea, in the Congo, in the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent have been persistent and patient, despite criticism from both sides. We have also tried to set an example for others by seeking to adjust small but significant differences with our own closest neighbors in Mexico and Canada. Speaking of other nations, I wish to make one point clear. We are bound to many nations by alliances. These alliances exist because our concern and theirs substantially overlap. Our commitment to defend Western Europe and West Berlin, for example, stands undiminished because of the identity of our vital interests. The United States will make no deal with the Soviet Union at the expense of other nations and other peoples, not merely because they are our partners, but also because their interests and ours converge. Our interests converge, however, not only in defending the frontiers of freedom, but in pursuing the paths of peace. It is our hope and the purpose of Allied policy to convince the Soviet Union that she too should let each nation choose its own future, so long as that choice does not interfere with the choices of others. The communist drive to impose their political and economic system on others is the primary cause of world tension today. For there can be no doubt that if all nations could refrain from interfering in the self-determination of others, the peace would be much more assured. This will require a new effort to achieve world law, a new context for world discussions. It will require increased understanding between the Soviets and ourselves. An increased understanding will require increased contact and communication. One step in this direction is the proposed arrangement for a direct line between Moscow and Washington to avoid on each side the dangerous delays, misunderstandings, and misreadings of others' actions which might occur at a time of crisis. We have also been talking in Geneva about our first step measures of arms controls, designed to limit the intensity of the arms race and reduce the risk of accidental war. Our primary long-range interest in Geneva, however, is general and complete disarmament, designed to take place by stages, permitting parallel political developments to build the new institutions of peace, which would take the place of arms. The pursuit of disarmament has been an effort of this government since the 1920s. It has been urgently sought by the past three administrations. And however dim the prospects are today, we intend to continue this effort, to continue it in order that all countries, including our own, can better grasp what the problems and the possibilities of disarmament are. The only major area of these negotiations where the end is in sight, yet where a fresh start is badly needed, is in a treaty to outlaw nuclear tests. The conclusion of such a treaty, so near and yet so far, would check the spiraling arms race in one of its most dangerous areas. It would place the nuclear powers in a position to deal more effectively with one of the greatest hazards which man faces in 1963, the further spread of nuclear arms. It would increase our security. It would decrease the prospects of war. Surely this goal is sufficiently important to require our steady pursuit, yielding neither to the temptation to give up the whole effort, nor the temptation to give up our insistence on vital and responsible safeguards. I'm taking this opportunity, therefore, to announce two important decisions in this regard. First, Chairman Khrushchev, Prime Minister Macmillan, and I have agreed that high-level discussions will shortly begin in Moscow, looking towards early agreement on a comprehensive test ban treaty. Our hope must be tempered Our hopes must be tempered with the caution of history, but with our hopes go the hopes of all mankind. Second, to make clear our good faith and solemn convictions on this matter, I now declare that the United States does not propose to conduct nuclear tests in the atmosphere so long as other states do not do so. We will not be the first to resume. Such a declaration is no substitute for a formal binding treaty, but I hope it will help us achieve one. Nor would such a treaty be a substitute for disarmament, but I hope it will help us achieve it. Finally, my fellow Americans, let us examine our attitude towards peace and freedom here at home. The quality and spirit of our own society must justify and support our efforts abroad. We must show it in the dedication of our own lives. As many of you who are graduating today will have an opportunity to do by serving without pay in the Peace Corps abroad or in the proposed National Service Corps here at home. But wherever we are, we must all, in our daily lives, live up to the age-old faith that peace and freedom walk together. In too many of our cities today, the peace is not secure because freedom is incomplete. It is the responsibility of the executive branch at all levels of government, local, state, and national, to provide and protect that freedom for all of our citizens by all means within our authority. It is the responsibility of the legislative branch at all levels, wherever the authority is not now adequate, to make it adequate. And it is the responsibility of all citizens in all sections of this country to respect the rights of others and respect the law of the land. All this is not unrelated to world peace. When a man's way please the Lord, the scriptures tell us, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. And is not peace, in the last analysis, basically a matter of human rights? The right to live out our lives without fear of devastation, the right to breathe air as nature provided it, the right of future generations to a healthy existence. While we proceed to safeguard our national interests, let us also safeguard human interests. And the elimination of war and arms is clearly in the interest of both. No treaty, however much it may be to the advantage of all, however tightly it may be worded, can provide absolute security against the risks of deception and evasion. But it can, if it is sufficiently effective in its enforcement, and it is sufficiently in the interest of its signers, offer far more security and far fewer risks than an unabated, uncontrolled, unpredictable arms race. The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression. We shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall be alert to try to stop it. But we shall also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task or hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we must labor on, not towards a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy of peace.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone who's joined us. We're going to now start a discussion period of this speech, and what I'd like people to do is, if they can use the electronic reaction which says raise hand, that would be very helpful to me, so I can call on people, and that will sort of also, I think, be in the order that you raise your hand, so that as many people as possible can contribute. I'm going to ask that people kind of limit their remarks to a minute, and Amar is going to keep track of that. I would, and again, as I said before, it would be helpful to, if you could also think about saying what strikes you about the speech particularly, and in what ways you feel it can be useful and effective. So with that, I also want to make some remarks at the end, but I'm very interested to hear what people's thoughts are. So can we start with Louise Coleman? Can you unmute yourself and share with us?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Great. I just wanted to say thank you very much for this great opportunity to hear John Kennedy. And I had forgotten about the speech, but and can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said it's a great opportunity. Great to hear him. And it's so strange that he's saying, you know, in a lot of ways, the same things that people are hoping for today. But he was, it's such a huge loss. That's the basic thing that I'm thinking about. It's just horrible that his life was ended. So
Thank you, Louise.
okay.
Robert O'Connell.
We will never know what would have come about had the President Kennedy lived. Unfortunately, there has been a sad disregard of that speech. There was at the time, and there was all the way up till the present day. People are not talking about total disarmament as he was talking about ending all arms and stopping all wars. That's a shame. The other thing I wanted to bring up is he talked about having to avoid at all costs the very dangerous choice that some world leader might be up against of a humiliating defeat or initiating the use of nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, it feels like we're in that atmosphere right now with the president of the leader of Russia facing the possibility that he probably never considered, which is that his country might be defeated by people like the Ukrainians. And what is that going to lead to? We have had maybe disagreeable
Robert,
people.
it's been a minute. Sorry.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, Arthur. You unmute yourself. Are you unmuted? I think you're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Ah, there we go. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yes, so great to hear him. And I remember his fantastic UN speech where he said the weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. And I put in the chat the link to War Without Winners, the movie I made in which Eisenhower gives us an incredible warning about the military-industrial complex and talks about every gun that was made.
There you go.
We lost him, but hopefully his film is in the chat. Robert, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. It really was stirring to hear his voice again. As I listened, it occurred to me that he said that Americans do not love war. And I think that that is not true. And I think that that may be why we're in the position we're in now. Everything he said was so stirring, but that seemed like it was not true. That I'm 79 now, and all my life I've been dealing with war of the United States, often the United States making. It seems to me we would do better if we just faced that fact and then went back to his proposals, that we would look in the mirror as he proposed and see the love for war that we have had and then build on that. And I think with that honesty, it may be possible to create a world of peace.
Thank you. Martha, can you, yes. You have to unmute yourself. In the bottom left is, oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm just wondering, see if anybody else remembered this book by, I think, James Douglas, JFK and the Unspeakable. in which he talks about how the Kennedy assassination could seems to be due, he thought, due to his outspokenness against war. So I wonder if anybody else had thought of that. And I was really struck by the book. Does anybody else know the book? I really recommend it if you haven't read it.
Yes, we've done a webinar on it not too long ago, actually.
Ah, good, thank you.
Very important.
Repeat the name of the book, please.
It's JFK and the Unspeakable, Why He Died and Why It Matters by James Douglas.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Thomas.
There we go. Well, thanks for doing this. And I hadn't seen this speech before. It's so pertinent to today. But one thing I've noticed is that we seem to be making the same mistakes over and over again. Haven't learned from history, and history isn't teaching us anything. And coming from Richmond, I've noticed that, of course, we had Monument Avenue and all of these Civil War generals and heroes. And I think the cultures all over the world are still worshiping these male domination, and our heroes go all the way back to Greece with actually killers and all who we admire. So I think we need to rethink and use our art, whether it's writing or painting or sculpture, to come up with new ideals that would help in the long run with our thinking, which is we're certainly not going in the right direction now. And that's my comment. Oh, and Rianne Eisler has a book called Nurturing Our Humanity, which has a lot about how you can change some of this. And so I thought it was a very good, a worthwhile book. And it looks a lot about, into the history of us and our having these ideas that we're by nature a killer, and that it's just not true. There's plenty of other scientific studies and all that can refute these arguments that our nature, is.
Thomas, sorry to hop in. It's been over a minute.
Thank you.
Can you put that book in the chat, Tom?
Sure,
Okay,
I
thank
can.
you.
Yes.
Okay, Martha.
I think Martha went and.
Oh, sure. And Arthur already went. Brad.
I think Arthur got kicked off in the middle of the.
Oh yeah, Arthur, we lost you. So
yeah, sorry, I'm back on. So great. Yeah, I'm sorry, my internet went down the phone, so now I'm on my computer. Brianne Eisler, by the way, is speaking at our People Powered Planet podcast. Well, we have 2 Wednesdays from now. This Wednesday is Wednesdays at 10 o'clock Pacific. Is going to be on how we create world law from the bottom up, People Powered Planet. And then the next week it's Brianne Eisler. So I'll put in the chat. We'll just go to peoplepoweredplanet.com. I'll put that in the chat. But okay. Also, I also put in the chat that Kennedy's UN speech was also fantastic. The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. And Eisenhower's great warning about the military-industrial complex, which is in War Without Winners, another film I made. So I invite you to go to look at the chat at also theworldismycountry.com, in which world citizen #1 Gary Davis kind of gives the formula for, here we've been stuck. President said these great things 60, 70 years ago, and we haven't fixed things. It really requires us from the bottom up, building what he called a people-powered planet that brings to the top the highest and best wisdom of everybody, instead of the current system that's a race to the bottom. We need a race to the top that brings together the common humanity, where all over the world people have common interests and thoughts and feelings, if we can find a better way to amalgamate them than this broken system. So I just want to invite people to see those, and thank you so much for bringing Kennedy on. Back, I wish we could really bring him back, but it's just inspiring to see him. So
thanks, Arthur.
thank you and join us.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, please go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, thanks again for the speech. A couple of things. One is begin by looking inward. He said, practical things, steps institutions can take. And one of those things I believe that could happen is that he said the US doesn't need to use threats. The TPNW, the ban treaty, outlawed threats of using nuclear weapons. One thing the US could do is to start acknowledging that treaty, acknowledging the General Assembly. The world has spoken about this, and we could start being more humble and engage with the world. The Security Council is locked up right now, and the General Assembly needs that support.
Thank you. Brad, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was really struck by the boldness of JFK's call for complete disarmament. And I think that's important to think of. We shouldn't be afraid to be as bold and make that call for complete disarmament. A lot of our political leaders, I think, don't want to do that because they're seen as being naive or idealistic. But in the speech, JFK kind of dispelled that notion of that cynical notion. And so it was a message to me personally to continue to be bold in calling for the abolition of all war and have us be the new sort of war abolitionist and to proudly speak about that, not sort of hide behind it or be afraid to articulate that loudly in public. Thank you again for bringing this. It was great to see the speech again.
Thank you. Let's see, Sharon, I think you're next.
Hi, thanks so much. And it's really great to see so many people on this Zoom and in this discussion. We can't bring JFK back, but what I've been saying and just realizing for a long time is that we need the wisdom of JFK. And why don't we have that? Is it that people are so afraid of getting assassinated? Because I really wonder about that. I mean, the 60s really sent some very, very strong messages, with the assassinations, JFK and RFK and MLK. And so are people afraid that, if they really stick their neck out, that's what's going to happen? I would like to see more women leaders that are really committed to peace. I will vote for men who are committed to peace over women who are not. And I would say that those men embody the feminine much better than those women, like, for example, Hillary Clinton. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks very much. Let's see. Anybody else? Amar, do you notice anyone else?
Not with their hand raised.
Okay. Well,
Bush has his hand waved.
Marty,
okay. Yep.
I see a woman.
Yeah.
Gupta, do you see with the hand raised?
Yes. 847-744-2935.
That's me. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you for the speech. I came in the middle, but I heard most of it. Could you repeat the name of that book again?
Yeah, it's
JFK.
JFK and the Unspeakable: Why He Died and Why It Matters by James Douglas.
James Douglas. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Marty, look at Gupta Subhash, who does not have a yellow hand up. He has his regular hand up.
Okay. Go ahead. You can go ahead and speak.
I think, are you referring to me, Larry McGovern?
No. I'm the one next to you, which in my screen, Gupta. Can you unmute yourself?
Well,
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not sure why he
Go
can't
back.
unmute himself.
We can go back to you when you get yourself unmuted. I see that Wendell.
Yeah, okay. Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much. The whole speech is very inspiring in the sense that it is so much relevant today. And President Kennedy has already explained that in what situation we can actually create an environment of peace. And totally our leadership has abandoned those conditions, like not listening to others, not listening and not trying to see like what is the interest of another country, which we always think is adversary. And then saying that United States, he explained that United States doesn't want to start any war, but the United States has started war in so many countries, and it is still ongoing. It has not ended. So other countries feel threatened, and their consideration for security has not been considered, and that has created the whole situation now. So I think that it is so relevant that it is very mind-boggling that how he foresaw all these situations, how the war can start anytime.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moji, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi. This is Moji Agra. I am Iranian American peace activist, and I am in Boulder, Colorado. Sorry that my camera for some reason doesn't work. My question is that this may have been covered in some way, but I remember as a child that we liked President Kennedy in Iran when I was a child, and there was a trauma when he was assassinated, and there was a song and all that. But in terms of Cold War, I believe that President Kennedy was assassinated by the military-industrial complex, who overthrew in 1953 CIA coup, Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh of Iran. And at the same time, however, Khrushchev, who was the Soviet Union's leader, he wanted, along with Kennedy, to move toward ending the Cold War. So the military-industrial complex of the Soviet Union, which was dependent on the Cold War, also, they had a coup against Khrushchev by Brezhnev. And what happened was that eventually, because the economy, and I'll finish quickly, because the economy of the Soviet Union was much smaller than the US, the diversion of resources and talent to the military and security sphere starved the Soviet society, and therefore the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, I believe that this need of internal despotism, the need and the mutual dependence of internal despotism of the Soviet Union with the external colonialism of the military-industrial complex is a mutual need as enemy. And I wonder what the panel thinks about this mutual need as enemy, where we can see in today's Iran, the supreme leader is dependent as enemy on the Republican Party of the United States. So please talk to that point, and whether you see an accuracy in that the
Moji, thanks.
The
Moji.
forces that overthrew Khrushchev and killed Kennedy in this country were mutually codependent.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, we had someone.
Marty, Larry McGovern's had his hand up.
Yes, okay.
Larry.
Hi, thank you. Just a couple of things. The military-industrial complex. My brother Ray McGovern, who many of you are probably familiar with, in fact, I think he may have participated in a webinar program of yours, has expanded that into what he calls the Mickey Mat. So he says the military-industrial congressional media, being the linchpin, academia think tank complex. So I'll offer that to you. Secondly, Ray, although I have not read it, he highly recommends in the Douglas book. He has also made me aware, and I have met a fellow Beverly, Massachusetts. I moved to Beverly from New York about a couple of years ago. A fellow named Peter Janney, who has written what I consider one of the most amazing books called Mary's Mosaic. And it's the story of the murder, the life of and murder by the CIA of Kennedy's real loving mistress that you never hear about. Her name, drawing a blank on her last name, but her name was Mary. And he was, Peter Janney was a friend of the family and everything. And he constructs this book that is amazing. And you can get it on Amazon. I would highly recommend it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have a hand up from a telephone, 847-744-2935. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, if JFK were alive today, how do you think he'd feel about the situation in Ukraine?
Okay. You want to take that one on, Red?
That's what I want to know too.
You want to know, huh? Okay.
Me? Did you ask me?
Yeah, Red, do you
So
want?
I think that's I don't know. That's a big question. How would he think about today? Well, he would be rolling in his grave. And I mean, the whole of today is astounding to anybody who's got their eyes open, and JFK certainly had his eyes open. So I almost think that question just should be asked to the public in general, especially the more unaware. But I don't know. How are the unaware to be aware when their full time is, working, giving their whole lives to it? I mean, who has time to research? And when the media isn't giving us stuff easily. But why I raised my hand and what I wanted to say was I wanted to pull a couple of things out of his speech. One thing he said about, he pointed to, and I was surprised at how early he said, to enslaving the world, the American economy, to enslaving the world. He said a world safe for diversity. I don't remember ever hearing that concept, in those clear words said before. I thought that was beautiful. Breathing the same air, of course. And then I wanted to ask specifically about, this Ukraine situation. I find I get frustrated by so much sympathy toward the Ukraine and so much ignorance toward the 14 years of the existential threat that actually it's more like 32 years. The existential threat that NATO, the US particularly, has been to Russia. I mean, they're under an existential threat, and we've broken our word. Our word is dirt. And the other thing is, as we support Ukraine, aren't we supporting like the Ku
Klux Klan and 1937 Hitler and
No.
Nazis,
No.
you know, so when this is
No.
all ends, when this all ends, who will we end up being on the side of? I think we have to be very careful. And I want to appreciate Diane Foster and Judith Alaya. Their words have in this chat have been wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn.
Yeah.
have-
This is the same thing that's happening in my locality in Boulder. We're fighting about the library district. The people come on that say, we love the library, implying like everyone else hates the library. No, we don't supply the way the library is being funded through our property tax. So people after the pandemic, people are really pent up, I guess, and they just have lost their senses. They don't care to inform themselves anymore, or they don't have time, like Red says. And, you know, doesn't everyone know about Victoria Nuland, about the 2014 election, about the 24 election, about 1939, about the whole history of Ukraine and how Russia has been going for this forever and how they've been undermined in every remote way? I'm not supporting Russia. I'm against the United States. Done.
Marty, I think Dennis Nelson has had his hand up for quite some time, and I don't think he's been called on.
All right, Dennis, you want to?
Sure. I'd like to testify from a personal experience. I grew up in a small town called St. George, Utah, downwind, approximately 100 miles downwind from the Nevada test site during the 40s and 50s, where they tested over 100 nuclear bombs in the air and the atmosphere, and the fallout rained down on my town. And I'm currently suffering from lymphoma. I'm in remission, but that's just one cancer. I've lost 3 family members to bone, brain, colorectal, lung, and those cancers I attribute to the fallout from the Nevada test site. And nobody seemed to care. It was kept quiet. Nobody in America seems to know or care about this travesty and this. And I've lost 4 family members now, and the average age of death is 53. That's way short of the average of 78 or 79 in the United States. So just having lived in that area and being exposed to those bombs had a tragic effect on my family, and nobody seems to care.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. My mom died of leukemia from that. 38 years old, 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Okay. The next, let's see. I can't read. Oh, Pamela Gall, do you want to?
Yes, thank you very much for this evening. I'm speaking from Bantry, Aberdeenshire in Scotland. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, but well worth staying up to see this. And thank you for your recent webinars. I've learned a lot, and it's been quite reassuring to know, to hear the voice of reason coming from so many people. And I have to say, it's wonderful to hear Kennedy again. I was 16 when he made that speech. The day after he made that speech, he made a speech anti-racism. And I think between that speech, his anti-racist speech, and allowing people from the civil rights into the White House, and compromising with Khrushchev over the Cuba crisis, is it any wonder that he didn't live? He was killed less than 6 months after he made that speech. It just seemed that he wasn't allowed to continue. And I, I have to say that over here at that time in the 1960s, Kennedy was very highly thought of. You know, people were so glad to see him elected and devastated when he was shot. And in those days, there seemed to be less suppression of the truth. We're bombarded on the mainstream news with, well, their choice of stuff from Ukraine. But thanks to webinars like this, we get a glimpse of the truth, which the populations are being denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's see.
Subhash has his hand raised again.
Margot? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hi.
Go, Margot. Go ahead.
I think that one of the questions you had asked at the beginning was, how can we use the
Yes.
speech? And I think, thinking back, that Eisenhower had also talked about the military-industrial complex, which is what we're dealing with, which we've been dealing with all along from the 50s and 60s all the way to the current day, because war is very profitable for the military-industrial complex. All the companies like Raytheon and Lockheed and Electric Boat, General Dynamics here in Rhode Island. And I think history is important. So to keep getting the word out there about in those years, our presidents were saying, we need to put a limit on these weapons. We need to not stockpile them. There's no need to do that. And try to get it through people's heads that the military-industrial complex is sort of, I don't want to say brainwashing, but they have so much power. There's so much money to be made for those companies, and for the military itself, it keeps them in business. So I think that's kind of the way maybe we could use this. But history is really important. And those men, both Eisenhower as a Republican and Kennedy as a Democrat, were really important. It meant, and Kennedy, you know, it may have meant his life. I don't know. There are so many, you know, theories about all of that. But and I think I put in the chat about MLK, and it didn't dawn on me till this year when I saw April 4th, 1967, he made his Vietnam speech. And 1 year to the day he's assassinated. So I don't know. I don't know, but all of that. But we can use history, and we can state the fact that these men, it meant enough to them, and they felt strongly enough about it to say those words, to go against that military-industrial complex.
Thanks very much, Margot.
Sure.
Jonathan.
Thank you. First, thank you for showing this great film, which I was a young adult, I remember actually. A number of people have talked about the importance of history. This should be an annual event every April. And then added to it should be Eisenhower's speech and MLK's out of Vietnam speech, right? Those three are enormously important beacons. They were at the time, and we have to light them again and keep them lit. And so I'm all for making this, you know, an annual event, and may it grow bigger and bigger. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's see. Do we have some other?
I've raised my hand, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Moji in Boulder.
Yeah.
And one thing about Lynn, my fellow Boulderite, who said, I am not for Russia, I'm just against the US. Let's go be against war and not for or against any particular country or leader. Be against war. That's my suggestion. But regarding Eisenhower, one thing that I am almost sure that none of the good folks here know is that Dr. Mossadegh's ambassador to the US, when after the coup, in the goodbye, the ceremonial goodbye of the ambassador from the sitting president, went to the White House and was, rather than just a 5-minute or 2-minute say goodbye, just a diplomatic thing, the late President Eisenhower, who overthrew Dr. Mossadegh because of, with the instrumentations of the Dulles brothers, he had a 40-minute conversation with him, and he said he had no choice. Eisenhower said to Dr. Mossadegh's ambassador to the United States, who was a extremely, erudite and loving attorney, he said, I had no choice in this. And then we can see Eisenhower at the end of his presidency talking about the military-industrial complex. So that's something that I thought is, and this information that I got is new information that has been brought up in oral history. I just wanted to share that.
That's very, very interesting, Moji. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. There was, yes, Robert, what? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. I think I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we know when Kennedy made the speech that he was aware that the Soviet Union was getting ready to test in the atmosphere something called the Tsar Bomba, about 100 kilotons of TNT. And so he very artfully and very intelligently, proactively challenged the Soviets not to detonate that bomb by announcing that he would not conduct atmosphere testing. Now, the important thing about that speech for me is that here in Little Rhode Island, we have the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Jack Reed, and we've been on him like a tick on a dog for about a year to think more proactively, to think more intelligently, to think more forward-looking. And in my opinion, what President Biden could do right now, without lessening any perceived mutual defense strategy that we may have, is that he could sign the TPNW and worry about ratification later on, but have him sign the TPNW. And we've got resolutions in Rhode Island in our local legislature to ask him to do just that. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Michael, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. So as far as the CIA coup in Iran in 1953, it was a British coup that the US contributed a lot of money to. So it wasn't a US originated coup because it was against the British oil company that Mossadegh was trying to nationalize. And Eisenhower made a speech similar to the one he made at the end of his presidency, the one in 61 that he made in 53, talking about, Cross of Iron speech, talking about taking money away from things. But as part of fighting communism and socialism around the world, the CIA and associated actors were considered the most effective way to fight the threat of the anti-imperialist elements that were starting to organize as part of the decolonization of the world, that most of which happened in the 60s and into the 70s. So there were a lot of players behind the scenes, and we were trying to become the #1 arms dealer, which we've become. I mean, we sell more weapons, twice the number that Russia sells to different countries. So to get our, what do you call it? The military or Mickey Mac or military industrial or whatever is, you know, it was growing at that point. Our empire was on the ascendance. And the other thing that we're doing now that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to is this thing called democracy promotion. It's a way that we irritate people behind the scenes using the National Endowment for Democracy to do stuff that at one time in the 50s and 60s, even into the 70s, was done by the CIA. And so if you look at these ways that we're irritating people, not only by using the National Endowment and its 30 or so associated subdivisions, I mean, it's not just all the NED, it's a whole network of democracy promotion. It's become an industry in itself. You also have this new report about the clandestine elements.
Yeah,
all
thanks,
the
Mike.
guys that are assuming false identities and then using those false identities to pretend that they're Russian or Chinese or Iranian so that they can create false flags. So we're doing a lot more than just war. I mean, all this behind the scenes stuff that people don't consider war is really annoying other countries.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Marty, if I could just hop in and say a couple of words.
Sure.
Because this, thank you, first of all, for everyone for coming. And this event was sponsored by our JFK group. So I just want to let people know that if they want to join that, where we talk about this and related issues, that they could email me or they could email Marty. We Mass Peace Action, Massachusetts Peace Action. We also have a No Cold War working group that people could get involved with if they want to. There's a nuclear disarmament working group that focuses on nuclear weapons. And we have a healthcare not warfare working group, for example, that meets later this week. So if anyone is interested in any of these topics and wants to get more involved, they can email me. I'll send an email out to everyone here with the video of this webinar and other resources. So if anyone wants to get more involved, they can let me know. I'll just say one more thing really quickly, because a lot of people tonight, they mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm working with, there's many of us at Mass Peace Action and other groups that are working with the Poor People's Campaign, which was started by Dr. Martin Luther King. We're mobilizing people from Massachusetts and all over the country to Washington, DC on June 18th of this year. And we're doing outreach, we're talking to different groups. If you are a part of a group and want to learn more about this, you can let me know, or if you're interested in the June 18th Mass Assembly in DC, please let me know. And I'll share links for that in the chat right now.
Who is speaking, please?
That was Amar.
Amar, thank you.
Also, if people want,
Amar at masspeaceaction.org.
If people want to jump in and save the chat, we can put the link for that and everything else in the chat. If you go to like you're typing in the chat and click to the three little dots to the right of where you would type, under more, it says save chat, and then you can say show in computer, and you can save all these great links and find out about both that and the films I posted, War Without Winners and theworldismycountry.com that I made. But we've got to rise above these nations that are dividing us, and we the people have to come together and create the world we choose. It's not that the nation states aren't going to do it. That system's too broken. But we the people can do it.
Thank you. Do we have other hands raised at the moment? Well, maybe I could say a few words. You know, I did study the Kennedy assassination quite a bit, and there's a Hindu expression, when the people are ready, the leader will arise. And I think, and people have mentioned Jim Douglas's book, JFK and the Unspeakable, Why He Died and Why It Matters. And I do think that that book is an incredibly important book because Douglas does something extremely unusual in that book. And it had a big effect on me. Douglas actually resurrects Kennedy in the reader and charges the reader with carrying on the work for which JFK died. And in a sense, that might also be part of the spirit of everyone who's attending this seminar, is to somehow figure out how to, in our own ways, to carry on this work that he was attempting to do. And I wanted to highlight a couple things, just reviewing a couple things from the speech. In particular, I wanted to mention, he asked us to re-examine our attitudes toward Russia, the Soviet Union, and the Cold War. And in that regard, I'd like to recommend to everyone something. We have the media bombarding us with supposed pundits and scholars purporting to explain why Russia and its leaders are doing this and that. And I have to say that, in my opinion, these pundits and scholars are, for the most part, misleading and unnecessary. That if we want to understand what the Russian government leaders think, what they're trying to accomplish, what we need to do is actually pay attention to what they're saying. It's not a mystery. It's not crazy. They, as from my point of view, do say what they think, what they're trying to do, and why they're trying to do it. And there's a source which you can go to get direct accounts of what Russian leaders are saying. And that comes out of George Washington University. It's called Johnson's Russia List. It's a free service which you can sign up for. And it comes out about 2 or 3 times a week. And it publishes English translations of what Russian officials are actually saying. And in line with Kennedy's speech is, if you look at what they're saying and you're unhappy with the Russian leaders are saying, their attitude, what Kennedy, it seems to me, is saying to us is, let's examine our own attitude if we're not happy with their attitude, because our attitude is as important as theirs. And he also makes the point that we need to conduct our affairs in a manner such that these leaders would want to cooperate with us. And again, this is, I think, an idea which is very much against Cold War thinking that we need to keep in mind. I like very much the fact that people have been mentioning Martin Luther King's speech, Beyond Vietnam, and maybe our group that is focused on the Kennedy speech and the study of it and how to apply it may also want to take up the Martin Luther King speech and be studying that and seeing how we can apply that. In any event, I'd really like to thank everyone who has come in tonight, and please make sure that you connect with us so that we can stay in communication and continue working together. When you do communicate with us, if you let us know what you're interested in, what you're good at, and what you enjoy doing, that would help, because we really need everyone's involvement if we're going to have a mass peace movement in this country. I'm not sure if there's any others.
Marty?
Yep.
Marty, hi. May I have a minute too?
Sure.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Peter Kakis, and I've known Marty for aeons, live out here in Western Mass. And I just want to say, I'm sorry I came in late, but I had a previous commitment. But I want to say that was the legislation of the Joint Committee of Homeland Security in Massachusetts brought up, House 3688, Senate 1555. It's the Nuclear Weapons Commission bill. It's called a resolve. It's a joint Senate and House. 3688 or Senate 1555. The reason it's urgent is that we need to have you all who are listening see if you or anyone you know are in the districts of any of the House of Representatives or senators who are on this joint committee. They're going to vote, I believe, on May 4th to whether to have this. We've tried for 3 years to get it this far. And we have. And so this, I think, is terms of action. This is what you can do, is to put pressure on them. Please, please, please. 3688 in the House. The parallel is Senate 1555 to establish a nuclear commission to assess the existential threats of the nuclear presence in the Commonwealth. But
Peter, thank you very much. And you know,
Just quick question. Is this before Congress or is it before
no, state.
Okay,
These are
great.
Massachusetts matters. But thank you
All right.
And what committee is considering it?
The Joint Committee on Homeland Security. That's not the full title, but that's close enough. The Joint Committee on, if you look up H 3688, you'll find it, or S 1555.
We're having a lobby day about those bills on Wednesday at the state.
The lobby day is on Wednesday. I live 100 miles. Last time I went to one of those, it took me 5 hours round trip.
Oh no!
5 round trip.
We're going
stay overnight. I need to stay overnight because the traffic was so, as they used to say where I grew up in Somerville, wicked.
Yeah.
But I would just want to say that thank you, Marty, for your tireless efforts to bring JFK's vision back to life. And but this is action that we can take.
Well, and
now.
Peter, let me just say that what you're saying is so totally in line with JFK, because in the speech, he talks about the importance of doing what we can do right now and accomplishing what we can accomplish right now in order to give people hope and encouragement to move forward with this.
Yes.
So what you're saying is completely in line with the spirit of that speech.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. No, and God bless you all, if I may say. I'm a minister, stem the blood. I'm retired, but you can take them out of the pulpit. So there we are. Oh, the one other thing. Did you see Sunday's ideas section of the Globe? Was that mentioned?
No.
Sunday's Globe, the top column was all about the existential threat of nuclear warfare and referenced Scott Ritter. Do you all know Scott Ritter?
Sure.
His brand new book, Scorpion King. I'm reading America's Suicidal Embrace of Nuclear Weapons from FDR to Trump. I heard Scott in 2002 sound the alarm about invading Iraq.
Absolutely.
And there you are. And Scott was a Marine commander in Iraq, overseeing the destruction of the weapons of mass destruction. And he said 95% of them were wiped out, and the other 5% were in parts scattered around the country.
And he was with Hans Blix in Iraq saying there's no nuclear weapons. Iraq is complying with all of our requests. They're transparent. Everything is good. And he was asked to leave the country because we were going in anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted war. The war machine, the beast. Sorry.
He's also been excellent on Ukraine.
Scott Ritter's just been banned off of Twitter. He's been a dissenting voice on this Russia-Ukraine narrative, and he's been a dissenting voice. So they banned him off of Twitter. And
and now Chris Hedges has been banned off of YouTube. His library for the last 4 years of no contact, whatever it's called.
On contact, yeah.
Yeah, on contact. Yeah. So the old stuff is there, but when he went into RT, they banned the last 4 years of his stuff. But I wanted to ask, I can't make a copy of this chat thread. is it Amar, if you contact me, is it available? Can you send it to me if I contact you?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
It will be part of the recording.
Oh, great.
The
Thank you.
recording.
Yeah, and again, usually if you just go to the type of message and you look to the far right, you see three little dots where you click on them and it says save chat.
I have the three little dots. I don't have the save chat.
So click on the three little dots, it'll turn up into save chat.
I did click on the three little dots. I don't have a save chat.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
If I could just throw in here that I was just watching before a really informed session on Shear Post. Robert Shear of Scott Ritter talking about the guy knows more about war and Russian armies than you would ever know, and he is quite the excellent authority on Ukraine. He's also done some things with my brother Ray.
By the way, Larry, we have to absolutely thank Ray and everything he's doing and veteran intelligence professionals for sanity, because they've just made an incredible contribution.
They have, and Ray keeps in there. He's unreal. Just had open heart surgery a couple months ago, but didn't slow him down. He's just past 82, and he's going strong.
Oh, good.
I want to thank you, Larry, for being here, because now I feel 1 degree closer to Ray, who I've loved. He wrote stuff that I was writing after he wrote it, and I said, finally, somebody,
Well, I'm much more handsome than he, so. I am very glad to find you guys, and look forward to participating in some way with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amar, do you want to take over at this point?
Sure. Yeah, I think we can get ready to wrap up the program. So I'll just finish by saying that I'll send a follow-up email to everyone. We had over 300 people registered for tonight, so that was really great. We'll include the video of the speech, so you can share it around with people, hopefully provoke discussions and interesting thoughts people can think about this. And we'll share some other resources, the JFK and the Unspeakable, the name of the book, if people want to look into that, and ways to connect with me if you want to get more involved in mass peace action working groups. We have working groups on nuclear weapons, no Cold War with China and Russia. We have a healthcare not warfare working group. We have a peace and climate working group. All different working groups. We're working with the Poor People's Campaign to mobilize for June 18th in DC. There's lots of different things going on. I'm doing a book. I'm interviewing Margaret Kimberly from the Black Agenda Report and Black Alliance for Peace about her book, Presidential, Black America and the Presidents. So we're going to have a book discussion in May. So there's lots of stuff going on. If you're interested in any of that, just let me know. I'll send a follow-up email in the next coming days. So I think with that, we can say thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thanks again, Marty.
Thank you so much for
Thank
you.